For 300 years, humanity looked at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there. Scientists sent signals into the darkness. Telescopes searched for signs of life. Children grew up dreaming of the day when Earth would finally meet its cosmic neighbors. When that day came, it was nothing like the dreams. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning. Every screen on Earth flickered at the same moment. Televisions, phones, computers, and even electronic billboards all showed the same image. A vast chamber made of dark metal and glowing crystals appeared before 8 billion people. Strange beings sat in a circle of 12 massive thrones. Some had too many eyes, others had no eyes at all. A few looked almost human, but something about them felt deeply wrong. This was the Council of 12 Suns, the ruling body of the Galactic Concord. They controlled thousands of star systems. Their civilization had existed for millions of years, and they had been watching Earth for a very long time. A being made of living crystal stepped forward. His body caught the light and scattered it into rainbows across the chamber walls. His name was Ambassador Kethril of the Vareni Dominion, and he had been chosen to deliver humanity's sentence. "People of Earth," he began, his voice somehow translating perfectly into every human language at once. "You have been observed. You have been studied. You have been judged." In living rooms and offices around the world, people stopped what they were doing. Parents held their children. Workers gathered around screens. The entire planet held its breath. The Galactic Concord has classified your species as Category 7 primitive. You are violent. You are unstable. You are genetically and culturally inferior to the civilized races of this galaxy. The words hit like physical blows. Somewhere in Tokyo, a woman dropped her coffee cup. In New York, a man sank into his chair. In a small village in Nigeria, an old woman shook her head slowly. Refusing to believe what she was hearing, Ambassador Kethril continued without emotion. Earth will be quarantined for a period of 10,000 standard years. During this time, no trade will be permitted. No contact will be allowed. No technology will be shared. Any human vessel that attempts to leave your solar system will be destroyed without warning. 10,000 years. The number was incomprehensible. Civilizations rose and fell in less time. Everything humanity had ever known had happened in less time. They were being locked away until the stars themselves grew old. But the worst part was still coming. "To ensure the galaxy understands our decision," Kethril said, "we will now present the evidence." The chamber's walls transformed into massive screens. Images began to play. Humanity's history unfolded before the watching galaxy. It was not a kind portrait. Wars. Countless wars stretching back to the beginning of recorded time. Bodies piled in trenches. Cities burning. Mushroom clouds rising over Japan. The footage showed everything with cold, clinical precision. Genocides came next. Names that made humans bow their heads in shame. Rwanda, Armenia, the Holocaust. Faces of victims flashed across the screen, one after another. An endless parade of suffering. Environmental destruction followed. Forests burning. Rivers poisoned. Species going extinct. The planet that had given humanity life, slowly dying under their care. This species consumes itself, Kethril narrated as the images continued. They cannot stop fighting. They cannot stop destroying. They poison their own world. They slaughter their own kind. They have nothing to offer the civilized galaxy. The presentation lasted 47 minutes. By the end, many humans were crying. Some were angry. Others felt a deep burning shame that they could not explain. The final image showed Earth from space. A beautiful blue marble floating in the darkness. Kethril's voice returned one last time. This is humanity. Violent, primitive, unworthy. The quarantine begins now. This broadcast is complete. Every screen went dark. For a long moment, the world was silent. Then the noise began. People screaming. People crying. People demanding answers that no one could give. Governments scrambled to respond. Military commanders argued about impossible counterattacks. Religious leaders struggled to explain what this meant for their faiths. In Geneva, United Nations called an emergency assembly. Representatives from every nation crowded into the great hall,
Oh,
their faces showing shock, anger, and fear in equal measure. Everyone was shouting. Everyone had demands. No one had solutions. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo sat at the center of the chaos, but she did not participate in it. She was a tall woman with gray hair and steady eyes that had seen many crises. This was different from all of them. But some part of her had been preparing for this moment her entire life. She had watched the broadcast carefully, not just the accusations, but the details behind them. The way the aliens had edited the footage, the things they had chosen to include, the things they had left out. They had shown humanity's wars, but not the soldiers who gave their lives to save strangers. They had shown humanity's genocides, but not the people who had hidden refugees in their homes. They had shown humanity burning, but not humanity rebuilding from the ashes. The aliens thought they understood humans. They had watched from far away, collected data, made their judgments. But they had made a mistake that Amara recognized instantly. They had seen humanity's capacity for darkness. They had not seen its capacity for defiance. Amara stood up. She did not raise her voice or demand attention. She simply stood there, waiting. One by one, the shouting voices fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the woman who had led them through so many smaller crises. "They think they know us," she said quietly. Her voice carried through the silent chamber. "They watched us from far away. They made their files and their reports. They put us in a category and decided our fate." She looked around the room at the frightened faces of world leaders. "They called us violent. They are right. We are violent. We have always been violent. But that violence has a purpose they do not understand. We fight because we refuse to accept defeat. We fight because we believe tomorrow can be better than today. We fight because giving up is not in our nature." Her voice grew stronger. 10,000 years. That is what they gave us. 10,000 years alone in the dark. She smiled, and there was something fierce in that smile. "They think this will break us. They think we will turn on each other and destroy ourselves. They are wrong." She placed her hands on the table and leaned forward. "We are going to prove them wrong. Every assumption they made, every judgment they passed, every category they put us in, we are going to show them that humanity does not stay down when it gets knocked down." The room remained silent, but something had changed. Fear was still there, but it was being pushed aside by something else. Something older and more powerful. Anger, purpose, determination. "You gave us 10,000 years, Amara said. We will not need them." Outside the building, the stars shone down on a world that had just been told it was worthless. But in the hearts of 8 billion people, something was beginning to burn. The aliens had tried to shame humanity into submission. Instead, they had given humanity something it had lacked for generations: a common enemy, a shared purpose, a reason to become more than they had ever been. The long night had begun. But humanity had never been afraid of the dark. The first 2 years after the broadcast were exactly what the aliens expected. Stock markets collapsed within hours. Banks failed within days. Governments fell within months. Old hatreds that had been sleeping woke up with terrible hunger. Border wars erupted. Cities burned. People who had been neighbors for generations suddenly remembered reasons to hate each other far above Earth. Concord sensor stations recorded everything. The alien analysts nodded with satisfaction. This was how primitive species behaved when faced with rejection. They had seen it many times before. Humanity would tear itself apart, and in a few centuries, quarantine would become unnecessary. But they missed something important in their data. Yes, there was violence. Yes, there was chaos. But between the fires, something else was happening. Small things at first. A general in South America who refused orders to attack a neighboring country. A factory owner in China who kept paying workers he could not afford. A group of scientists from 12 different nations who met in secret and made a promise to each other. The darkness was real. But so was the light fighting against it. In the 3rd year, a woman named Amara Okonkwo stood before what remained of the United Nations and proposed something that had never been tried before. She called it the Unity Protocols. "We cannot survive divided," she told the assembled leaders. "The aliens are waiting for us to destroy ourselves. Every war we fight, every nation that falls, proves them right. But what if we prove them wrong instead?" The Unity Protocols were simple in concept and impossibly difficult in practice. Nations would share resources based on need, not politics. Scientists would work together regardless of borders. Military forces would combine into a single defensive force. Old grudges would be set aside. Not forgotten, but set aside, because survival demanded it. Many laughed at the idea. Many more called it impossible. But enough people were tired of fighting. Enough people wanted to believe in something better. And slowly, painfully, the Unity Protocols began to take hold. It was not easy. Nothing about those years was easy. Former enemies had to learn to work together. Proud nations had to accept help from countries they had once looked down upon. Politicians who had built careers on division had to learn new ways to lead, but humans were adaptable. They always had been. By the 5th year, the chaos had settled into something like order. Not peace exactly, but purpose. The world was still hurting, still healing from the wounds it had inflicted on itself. But it was moving forward now instead of tearing itself apart, deep beneath the Swiss Alps. In a facility that did not appear on any map, Director Chen Weilin oversaw the most ambitious project in human history, Project Prometheus. 12,000 scientists from 63 countries worked in the massive underground complex. Physicists, engineers, biologists, mathematicians, and specialists in fields so new they did not have names yet. They had been given a single mission: find a way to reach the stars. The Concorde's technology was millions of years more advanced than anything on Earth. Their ships used jump gates that bent space itself. Their weapons could shatter planets. Their medical science had conquered death itself for some species. Catching up to them through normal research would take thousands of years. Director Chen knew they did not have thousands of years. They had a decade at most before humanity's unity began to crack again. They needed a miracle. The miracle came from an unlikely source: Dr. Yuki. Tanaka was 53 years old and had spent most of her career being ignored. Her theories about dimensional membranes and parallel space had been dismissed as fantasy by serious physicists. She had been included in Project Prometheus almost as an afterthought, a token acknowledgement of unconventional thinking. But Director Chen believed in listening to unconventional thinkers. "Explain it to me again," he said one evening, sitting in Yuki's cluttered laboratory. "But this time, pretend I am a child." Yuki smiled. She was used to explaining her ideas to skeptics. "Think of space as a piece of paper," she said, holding up a blank sheet. "The Concorde's ships travel along the surface of the paper. They've gotten very good at it. Very fast. Very efficient. But they are still limited by the paper itself." She folded the paper in half, bringing two distant corners together. "My theory suggests that space has layers, like pages in a book. The Concorde only uses one page because they do not believe other pages exist. But if we could step off the page, move through the space between pages, we could go anywhere instantly. You believe this is possible? I believe it is worth trying. The Concorde has had millions of years to explore their way of doing things. They stopped looking for alternatives long ago, but we have nothing to lose. We can afford to try crazy ideas." Director Chen looked at the folded paper for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change human history. "How many people do you need?" The work took 5 years. 5 years of failures and breakthroughs and more failures. 5 years of Yuki's team trying to bend the laws of physics in ways the Concorde said were impossible. There were times when even Yuki wanted to give up. Times when the equations refused to work and the experiments produced nothing but expensive wreckage. But they kept trying, because that was what humans did. On the morning of the 10th anniversary of the broadcast, a small spacecraft sat in a launch facility in the Australian outback. It looked nothing like the Concorde's elegant vessels. It was ugly and practical, covered in sensors and cables and devices that hummed with strange energy. Dr. Tanaka stood in the control room, her hands shaking slightly as she watched the screens. Beginning dimensional shift in 30 seconds, a technician announced, YUK. I closed her eyes. 10 years of work. 10 years of being told it was impossible. Everything came down to the next few moments. Shift in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. Across the world, people who knew about the test held their breath. Secretary General Okonkwo watched from Geneva. Director Chen watched from his underground facility. Scientists in 100 countries watched through encrypted feeds. 3, 2, 1. Shift. The spacecraft vanished. For 3 terrible seconds, the screen showed nothing. Yuki felt her heart stop. Had she been wrong? Had she killed the brave pilot who had volunteered for this mission? Then the communication system crackled to life. Control, this is Pioneer 1. I am currently in orbit around Proxima Centauri. Transit time was approximately 4 seconds. Please confirm receipt of this message. Proxima Centauri. For light years away, a journey that would take the Concorde ships nearly 2 months. Humanity had done it in 4 seconds. The control room exploded into cheers. Scientists, who had not slept in days, began crying. Someone started an old song that spread through the facility like fire, far above Earth. The Concorde sensor stations detected something impossible. A human ship had appeared at Proxima Centauri. The analysts ran their calculations again and again, refusing to believe the results. In his chamber aboard the diplomatic station, Ambassador Cathrell received the report. He read it 3 times before responding. This is not possible, he said. Check your equipment. But the equipment was working perfectly. And the primitives had just done something that the Concorde's greatest scientists said could not be done. The silent decade was over. Humanity's voice was about to be heard across the galaxy. And the Concorde was not ready for what it was about to. Say Admiral James Reeves had spent 30 years in the military before the broadcast changed everything. He had commanded ships. He had fought in wars. He had seen things that still visited him in his nightmares. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for this moment. He stood on the bridge of the TSV Defiance, humanity's first true interstellar warship. Through the massive viewport, an alien world hung in the darkness like a blue and green jewel. Clouds swirled across its surface. Oceans sparkled in the light of its sun. Forests covered entire continents. Kepler 4 for to be a paradise world in the heart of Concorde space. 400 light-years from Earth, the journey had taken 3 hours. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, I am detecting multiple population centers on the surface. Estimated total population is approximately 2 billion individuals. Species appears to be Vareni, same as Ambassador Cathrell. Reeves nodded slowly. The Vareni had been among the loudest voices calling for humanity's quarantine. They had called humans animals, savages, monsters unfit for civilized company. Now human ships floated in their sky, and they had no idea. Are they aware of our presence? Negative, sir. Their sensors cannot detect our dimensional signature. They are reading us as a minor gravitational anomaly. Current assessment is that they believe we are a sensor malfunction. The irony was not lost on Reeves. For 10 years, the Concorde had watched Earth, confident in their superior technology. Now humanity watched them, and they were completely blind. Behind the Defiance, 199 more ships held position in perfect formation. The Ghost Fleet, they called it. 2 years of frantic construction had produced a force that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Ships that moved through dimensions the Concorde did not believe existed. Ships that were invisible to sensors designed to detect technology the aliens understood. Sir, the communications officer said, we are ready to deploy the message beacon on your order. Reeves took a deep breath. This was the moment everything changed. For 10 years, humanity had worked in secret. Now, they would reveal themselves to the galaxy, but not through violence. Through something the aliens would find much more disturbing. Demonstration. Deploy the beacon, he ordered. Then prepare for dimensional shift. We have 16 more stops to make. The beacon was a simple device. It contained a single message in every known Concord language. We were here. We could have struck. We chose not to. Consider this our introduction. As the beacon activated, the ghost fleet vanished. One moment, 200 warships hung above the Vareni homeworld. The next moment, space was empty, except for a small device broadcasting an impossible message. On the surface, chaos erupted. Military commanders screamed for explanations. Scientists insisted that what had happened was not possible. Politicians demanded to know how their defenses had failed so completely, but there were no answers. Only the beacon and its quiet message. We were here. We could have struck. We chose not to. Over the next 6 months, the Ghost Fleet appeared at 17 different Concord worlds. Each time, they arrived without warning. Each time, they watched and recorded and vanished before intercept vessels could respond. Each time, they left behind the same message. The effect on Concord space was devastating. Species that had not worried about war in 10,000 years suddenly felt afraid. Governments that had considered themselves invulnerable discovered they were defenseless. The great certainties of Concord civilization began to crack. How had the primitives done this? Where were they coming from? Why could they not be tracked? Ambassador Cathrell demanded answers at every council meeting. The military commanders had none to give. Their best scientists studied the message beacons but found only simple technology. Whatever the humans were using to move their ships, it left no trace that Concord instruments could detect. Some council members wanted to attack Earth directly, destroy the primitive world and end the threat. But cooler heads pointed out the obvious problem. If humanity could appear anywhere without warning, what would happen when they discovered their homeworld had been destroyed? The Ghost Fleet had never fired a weapon. They had never killed a single alien. But they had done something far more effective. They had proven that they could. On Earth. Secretary General Okonkwo monitored the alien communications with a mixture of satisfaction and caution. The plan was working. The Concord was afraid. But fear alone was not enough. She needed them to think. Admiral Reeves, she said during one of their encrypted briefings, what is your assessment of Concord military strength? Reeves considered the question carefully. Their ships are impressive. Advanced weapons, strong shields, experienced crews. In a straight fight, they would outnumber us 1,000 to 1. But they have never faced an enemy like us. Their wars have been fought against species that use the same technology they do. They have tactics for dealing with jump gates and conventional weapons. They have no idea how to fight an enemy that appears from nowhere and disappears just as quickly. Okonkwo nodded. And if we were forced into a prolonged conflict, we would lose eventually. Numbers matter. Resources matter. We have surprised them, but surprise fades. If we want a future that does not involve endless war, we need to find another way. This was why Okonkwo had chosen Reeves to lead the Ghost Fleet. He understood that military power was a tool, not a goal. The fleet existed to create opportunities, not to win battles. I believe the time has come for Phase 2, she said. Reeves raised an eyebrow. The broadcast. They had been planning this for years. The Concord had used a broadcast to condemn humanity. Now humanity would use a broadcast to respond. But their message would be different. The Concord had shown humanity's darkness. Humanity would show everything they had left out. How soon can you be ready? Okonkwo asked. Give me 2 weeks to position the fleet. When we transmit, I want ships visible at every major Concord world. Let them see us while they watch our message. Okonkwo smiled. It was a hard smile, full of years of anger and determination. Make it happen, Admiral. It is time the galaxy learned who we really are. 2 weeks later, the Ghost Fleet appeared at 47 locations simultaneously. This time, they did not hide. This time, they wanted to be seen. Across Concord space, billions of aliens looked up at skies that suddenly contained human warships. Ships that had appeared from nowhere, ships that could not possibly exist, and then the broadcast began on the council station. Ambassador Kethrel was in the middle of demanding yet another military update when every screen in the chamber flickered. His crystalline form went rigid as a human face appeared. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo looked at him calmly, her gray hair and steady eyes showing no fear. "Honored Council," she said, "10 years ago you judged us unworthy. Today, we offer a different perspective." Kethrel tried to cut the transmission. Nothing happened. He ordered his technicians to block the signal. They could not. Whatever the humans were doing, it was beyond anything Concord technology could stop. For the first time in his 300-year career, Ambassador Kethrel felt genuine fear. The primitives had come to speak, and the entire galaxy was going to listen. Secretary General Okonkwo's face appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Council chambers and private homes, military vessels and scientific stations. Everywhere the Concord's communications network reached, her message followed. 10 years ago, she began, you showed the galaxy our history. You showed our wars, our failures, our darkest moments. You called us violent and primitive and unworthy of the stars. She paused, letting the words settle. You were not wrong about the violence. We have never denied what we are capable of. But you made a mistake that we have come to correct. You showed the galaxy what humans can do to each other. You did not show what we can do for each other. The image behind her changed. A battlefield from the First World War appeared. Bodies lay in muddy trenches. Explosions tore the earth apart. It was one of the same images the Concorde had used in their original broadcast. But this time, the image continued. A young soldier crawled through the mud toward a wounded enemy. Bullets flew overhead. Death was everywhere. The soldier reached the wounded man and began dragging him toward safety. His name was Henry Tandy, Okonkwo narrated. He saved the life of an enemy soldier that day. He could have let him die. He chose not to. More images appeared. A woman hiding Jewish children in her attic during the Holocaust. A man standing in front of tanks in a Chinese square. Doctors working through the night in hospitals overwhelmed by disease showed our genocides. You did not show the people who stood against them. Ordinary people who risked everything because they believed some things were more important than their own lives. The broadcast continued. Firefighters running into burning buildings. Rescue workers digging through earthquake rubble. Volunteers traveling to distant countries to help strangers they would never see again. You called us selfish. You did not see the millions who give without expecting anything in return. Teachers who work for almost nothing because they believe in education. Parents who sacrifice everything for children who will never know how much was given for them. Ambassador Kethrel watched from his seat in the council chamber. His crystalline form flickered with emotions he did not fully understand. The other council members were similarly affected. Some looked angry. Some looked confused. A few looked something that might have been ashamed. The broadcast shifted again. Now it showed Earth after the original message had been delivered. The chaos, the violence, the collapse of the old order. We'll not pretend that your message did not hurt us, Okonkwo continued. It did. When you told us we were worthless, many of us believed it. We turned on each other just as your experts predicted. Your analysts probably recorded our wars with satisfaction. More evidence of human barbarism? The images showed burning cities and refugee camps. Fighting in streets that had been peaceful for generations. But you stopped watching too soon. You missed what came next. The images changed again. Former enemies meeting across negotiating tables. Scientists from rival nations working side by side. Factories that had made weapons being converted to build spacecraft. Borders opening instead of closing. We did something that your experts said was impossible. We chose to change. Not because we were forced to. Not because we were conquered. Because we decided that if the galaxy saw us as monsters, we would prove them wrong. The screen showed Project Prometheus. Thousands of scientists from dozens of countries working together in underground laboratories. The first test flights. The celebrations when Dr. Tanaka's theories proved correct. You gave us 10,000 years of isolation. We achieved faster than light travel in 10. Not through your methods, but through paths your scientists stopped looking for millions of years ago. You became so certain of what was possible that you forgot to check if you might be wrong.
Ow.
The ghost fleet appeared on screen. Ships hanging over Concord worlds. The message beacons that had caused so much fear. For 6 months, our ships have moved freely through your space. We have visited your homeworlds. We have watched your people go about their lives. We have had countless opportunities to strike. Okonkwo leaned forward slightly, her eyes intense. We never fired a single weapon. Not because we could not. Because we chose not to. This is the difference you failed to understand about humanity. Yes, we are capable of terrible violence. But we are also capable of restraint. We can choose to be better than our worst impulses. The council chamber was completely silent. Even the most hostile members had stopped their angry muttering. Something about the humans' words was reaching them in ways they had not expected. You asked yourselves how we achieved the impossible so quickly? The answer is simple. You gave us something we had lacked for generations. You gave us a reason to unite, a common cause, a shared enemy. She smiled slightly. We should probably thank you for that. The broadcast showed Earth as it was now. A world transformed. Clean cities powered by new technology, forests being restored. Former weapons of war converted into tools for exploration. We are not the same species you judged 10 years ago. We have grown. We have changed. We have become something better. Not perfect. We will never be perfect. But better. Okonkwo stood up from her chair and walked closer to the camera. You face a choice now. You can continue to see us as enemies. You can try to destroy us before we become a threat. Your military commanders have probably already proposed such plans. She shook her head slowly. We would rather not fight. We have had enough of war. But make no mistake, if you attack us, we will defend ourselves. And we will do it in ways your strategists cannot predict and your weapons cannot stop. Her voice softened. But there is another option. A better option. We did not come here to threaten you. We came here to offer something. The screen showed the coordinates for a location in neutral space. Partnership. Real partnership between equals. We know we are young compared to your ancient civilizations. We know we have much to learn. But we also know that we have something to offer. Fresh perspectives. New ideas. The stubborn determination that you called primitive, but that brought us to your doorstep in a decade. As if she could see every being watching across the galaxy. The Concord has existed for millions of years. In that time, you have built wonders we cannot imagine. But you have also stopped growing. Your science has stagnated. Your cultures have become fixed. Your wars are fought the same way they were fought 100,000 years ago. We offer you something you have forgotten you need. Change, progress, the uncomfortable questions that lead to new answers. We offer you the chance to become better, just as you forced us to become better. The coordinates pulsed on screen. We will be waiting at these coordinates. We hope you will come to talk, but if you do not, we will understand. We will go our own way. We will explore the galaxy on our own. We will find our own allies and build our own future. Her final words were quiet but carried across the light years. You called us unworthy of the stars. We are here to prove you wrong. The question is whether you are brave enough to let us. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, silence reigned. Billions of beings processed what they had just witnessed. The primitives had not threatened them. They had not demanded submission. They had offered partnership. It was the most unexpected response possible on the council station. Ambassador Kethril sat motionless for a long time after the screens went dark. His fellow council members eventually began arguing about what to do. Some wanted war. Some wanted negotiation. Some wanted to pretend the whole thing had never happened. Kethril ignored them all. He was thinking about the images he had seen. The soldier saving his enemy. The woman hiding children. The firefighters running into flames. He had studied humanity for 50 years. He had written the report that led to their condemnation. He had been so certain that he understood them. Now he was beginning to wonder if he had understood anything at all. The humans had given them a choice, and for the first time in millions of years, the Galactic Concord had to decide what kind of future it wanted. The neutral station hung in the darkness between stars. Human construction crews had built it in 72 hours using technology that made Concord engineers question everything they knew about physics. It was not elegant like alien structures. It was practical and solid and unmistakably human. Inside the main meeting chamber, Secretary General Okonkwo waited with Admiral Reeves and Dr. Tanaka. They had chosen this group carefully. The leader who had held humanity together, the warrior who had shown restraint, the dreamer who had made the impossible real. 3 aspects of humanity. 3 representatives of what their species could become. The air shimmered as Ambassador Kethrel materialized in the chamber. His crystalline form caught the artificial light and scattered it across the walls. He was alone. No guards, no aides. Just one representative of the oldest civilization in the galaxy, meeting 3 representatives of the youngest. For a long moment, no one spoke. 10 years of history hung in the air between them. 10 years of judgment and quarantine and fear. 10 years of humanity fighting to survive and growing stronger because of it. Kethrel broke the silence first. "You have made your point," he said. His voice was different than it had been in the original broadcast. The cold certainty was gone. Something like respect had taken its place. "What do you want? Revenge territory? Submission?" Okonkwo shook her head slowly. "We want what you denied us 10 years ago. Partnership." The word hung in the air. Kethrel's form flickered with confusion that he did not try to hide. "Your technology is beyond anything we possess. Your ships move in ways we cannot track or stop. You could take whatever you wanted from us. Why ask for partnership when you could demand tribute? Because that is not who we want to be." Okonkwo stood and walked to the observation window. Stars gleamed in the endless darkness beyond. "Your council showed the galaxy our worst moments as proof of our nature. But those moments were not our nature. They were our struggle against it." She turned to face the ambassador. "Every species faces darkness, aggression, greed, fear. What matters is whether you keep fighting against those impulses, whether you choose to be better despite how easy it would be to give in." Kethrel considered her words. In 300 years of diplomacy, he had never met a species like this one. Younger civilizations usually wanted power or protection. Older ones wanted stability and peace. But the humans seemed to want something else entirely. "You speak of partnership," he said carefully. "What exactly do you mean by this?" Dr. Tanaka stepped forward. She had been quiet until now, content to let the diplomats talk. But this question was one she had thought about for years. "The Concord has existed for millions of years," she said. "In that time, you have built incredible things. Your medical science can cure diseases we do not even have names for. Your engineering can construct structures that would take us centuries to understand. Your knowledge of the galaxy is vast beyond our imagination. But you have also stopped growing. Your physics has not fundamentally changed in 100,000 years. Your social structures have been static for longer than humanity has existed. You have optimized everything within your understanding. But you have stopped looking for new understanding." She gestured at the walls around them. "You built this station in 3 days using principles your scientists say are impossible. Not because we are smarter than you, because we had nothing to lose by trying impossible things. We were desperate. Desperation led to innovation." Kethrel's form pulsed thoughtfully. "You believe you can offer us new perspectives. We know we can. Our technology already proves it. But more than that, we offer you something harder to quantify. We offer you the willingness to question everything, to challenge assumptions, to accept that being wrong is not shameful, but necessary for growth." Admiral Reeves spoke for the first time. "We could have used our advantage to attack you. Our strategists calculated that we could cripple the Concord's infrastructure before you even understood what was happening. Some of them wanted to do exactly that. Why did you not? Because destruction is easy. Building something better is hard. We have had enough destruction in our history. We came to the stars looking for something worth building. Kethril was silent for a long moment. His crystalline mind processed possibilities that had never occurred to him before. The humans were offering something unprecedented in galactic history. Not conquest, not submission. Something genuinely new. The Council will resist, he said finally. Many of them will never accept humans as equals. They have believed in their own superiority for too long to change easily. Okonkwo nodded, then convinced them. You have 300 years of experience in galactic politics. You know how to navigate their fears and their pride? We have a decade of proving impossible things possible. Together, we might actually build something worth believing in. She extended her hand toward him. The gesture was purely human, but Kethril had studied Earth long enough to understand what it meant. A offer. A promise. A chance. For the first time in his long career, Ambassador Kethril did something unprecedented. He had spent 50 years studying humanity from a distance. He had written reports condemning them as savages. He had stood before the council and argued for their permanent isolation. Now he reached out and took a human's hand. The gesture would have seemed absurd to his colleagues. A representative of the oldest civilization in the galaxy, accepting partnership from primitives who had achieved starflight only a decade ago. But Kethril had seen things in the past 6 months that changed his understanding of everything. Ships that moved through dimensions he had not believed existed. A species that unified against impossible odds. Leaders who chose restraint when they could have chosen revenge. Perhaps the primitives had something to teach after all. I will speak to the council, he said. I cannot promise they will listen, but I will try. Okonkwo smiled. It was a warm smile, without the hardness that had characterized her previous expressions. That is all we ask. A chance to prove ourselves. A chance to show what we can become when we work together instead of apart. The meeting lasted many more hours. Details were discussed. Concerns were raised. Plans were made. But the fundamental decision had been reached in those first few moments. Humanity and the Concord would try something new. Not conquest. Not isolation. Partnership. 50 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways that no one had predicted. Human innovation sparked a technological renaissance across Concord space. Species that had stagnated for millennia found themselves inspired by the newcomers' relentless creativity. Old enemies became collaborators. Rigid hierarchies evolved into dynamic partnerships. It was not always easy. There were setbacks and failures and moments when everything seemed about to fall apart. Some Concord species never accepted the humans. Some humans never forgave the Concord's original judgment. Progress was slow and painful and often frustrating, but it was progress. Real progress. Forward motion into an uncertain but hopeful future. On the 50th anniversary of the original broadcast, a new message played across known space. This time, it was not a condemnation. It was a celebration. The images showed humans and aliens working together, building together, dreaming together. Scientists from a dozen species collaborating on projects that none of them could have achieved alone. Children of different worlds playing in parks designed for all of them. Secretary General Okonkwo was long retired now, but she watched the broadcast from her home in Kenya. Outside her window, she could see the launch towers, where ships departed for distant stars every hour. Ships crewed by humans and aliens working side by side. The closing words of the anniversary broadcast made her smile. 50 years ago, they said we were unworthy of the stars. They were wrong. But so were we when we thought the stars were the destination. They were just the beginning. Dr. Tanaka watched from her laboratory on a station orbiting a star that humans could not even see from Earth. She was working on something new. Something that would make even her dimensional drive look primitive. Because that was what humans did. They kept pushing. They kept dreaming. They kept reaching for things that seemed impossible. Admiral Reeves watched from the bridge of his newest ship, surrounded by a crew that included 7 different species. The Ghost Fleet was now part of a combined force that protected all the peoples of the galaxy. Former enemies serving together, learning from each other. becoming something greater than any of them had been alone. Ambassador Kethril watched from his seat on the council, where he now served as the leading advocate for human concord cooperation. His crystalline form pulsed with something that might have been pride as he saw what they had built together. 50 years ago, it stood before this same council and called humanity unworthy. Now he understood how wrong he had been. Not because humans were perfect, they were not. But because their imperfection was exactly what made them valuable, they struggled. They failed. They got back up and tried again. They looked at impossible obstacles and asked how to get around them. They saw the worst in themselves and chose to be better anyway. That was what humanity offered the galaxy. Not perfection. Not superiority. Something far more valuable, hope. The stars shone down on a galaxy that was finally learning to grow again. The long night was over, and the future was brighter than anyone had dared to imagine.